Have you ever heard the term a single barrel whiskey? Well, prior to a couple weeks ago, I had never heard, or I can take that back. I've heard of the term single barrel whiskey, but I never really paused what a single barrel whiskey is all about. And so today's episode is about smaller is better than bigger. Now, what does that mean in the context of whiskey? So break it down a little bit. We're going to pull back. So what I learned, and you probably already know this, but this was new to me. And if you're like me, maybe this will be the first time you understood this. Most whiskey, before it's poured in a bottle, they take a sampling of multiple barrels and mix it together. So that way the varieties in all the different barrels and the inconsistencies create a consistent flavor over this batch of whiskey. So before it's poured in the bottle, you're not just going from one barrel into the bottle. A general whiskey is they mix it up with multiple barrels so that way the flavor is consistent. And if you're getting a 2006 whiskey, all that whiskey in that time frame within this company's barrel manufacturers most likely came from a group of all of them dumped together. But when you do a single barrel whiskey, it is literally just like you might think. They take the barrel and pour it into a single bottle and they sell it. So you can think of the higher price, the uniqueness of those because it is truly one of a kind. It is consistent with what happened inside that barrel. No other barrel, only that barrel. And this barrel has one-on-one attention and it creates an output, comes out of it. So what does this have to do with being a dad? Everything. Because as we've talked about in this podcast so far, having attention, having one-on-one time, knowing that your kids spell love Time, doing things as a family is really good. And like whiskey, when you put all this stuff together, you can create a good bourbon out of it. But when you focus on just like bourbon, one barrel and one kid, you can create something that's unique, something that is only characteristic to this person. And you can also tailor whatever you're doing to this one barrel, or we contrast it again to our analogy of family, to your one kid. Because as you already know, I'm not telling you anything new, every one of your kids has a different personality. They have different likes and things to do. Well, it's up to you as dad to help navigate and understand what those are, expand them, help them understand what it means to them to have these different likes and things they like to do. So showing up for each of your kids in a way that allows the uniqueness of them to come out with your connection in that one-on-one time is a game changer. Whether this be in a post-pandemic world where you take your daughter out or your son out and just have a dinner with him, kind of like the idea comes from dating your kids and getting to know them on that one-on-one time. A future episode, I'll tell about the time I went skiing with my daughter this past winter, and it was an amazing one-on-one experience, and it has a whole bunch of different lessons coming out of it. But all of those things relate back to the story of bourbon, because like bourbon, you can do good things by mixing it together. And like a family vacation, going to Disney World, good things can come out of that. But when you focus and create something from just one barrel and one kid, you can create something that's unique and a one of a kind. And your kids are one of a kind. And as dads, it is up to us to help them understand who they are, help them understand where they can go to the world, and help them understand how they can change it. Because as dads, we can breathe life with our words into their story, into their minds, and the narrative they hear as they grow up will be the words that we nurtured them with when they were young. And just like a bourbon that gets at different temperatures from the different sides, a father at different seasons of his life will influence his kids in different ways, and those will influence the kid in a way that allows them to be more them. And just like a good barrel of bourbon, it helps the barrel become more of it, a unique signature that is only unique to that barrel. So if you didn't think it was possible to connect this much bourbon knowledge to fathering, I hope I proved you wrong. This will be the end of the bourbon analogies for a little bit, unless I got any more that pop in my head. But for now, this was all my head had planned. So with that, I'll be back again with you tomorrow.